And for more on this, with me on the broadcast is Amanda Lennon from London. She is HR Director and Employment Lawyer at Spencer West LLP and a former Senior Executive at British Airways. Thanks very much for being here with us. Just how serious is the situation at this point in time? Just how bad could the disruptions get?
Well, when you add up all the different sectors that are going on strike, it's not like anything else I've seen in my lifetime. The nature of the consolidation of the strikes and everyone working together to cause a maximum disruption is quite unheard of. And it just shows you the depth of the issue in the country.
What about the UK government's handling of this situation? How could it have been better prepared to deal with this crisis, if at all? And what do you make of the way in which the negotiations have panned out?
Well, if you look at the government, it has a number of departments, all are responsible for pay negotiations across a variety of different sectors in public service, including the transport sector, but also, as you say, nursing, and the post office workers who've also been on strike. They all have input into that. In terms of where they are impacting most, as you say, it is the transport sector at the moment, and they have to be consistent. So I'm not surprised that they are taking quite a tough line with all of the unions that are threatening strikes, because they have to be careful that they don't make one concession in one area, which they will then have to make in another. It doesn't appear to me, though, that there is a particularly strategic plan in place. It appears to be very reactive, with the government dealing with the various unions on an individual basis rather than looking at the issue that we're facing holistically.
Right. So are you saying that there is still a window to find some common ground between the two sides, or has that ship already sailed?
I think there is a window. The issue you've got is that inflation has been so high, and lots of unions will be trying to hang their requests for pay rises on the back of inflation, which is way beyond any type of percentage that you would normally offer as an employer for a pay rise. So, for example, if a union is offering around the 10-11% mark in line with inflation and the cost of living crisis, an employer might be looking at, say, 3%, because they've got other pressures, including their shareholders, their budgets, the costs of running their business, whether those unions like that or not. That's where the big gulf comes from. They're coming at it with competing interests. And it's also interesting that in the rail sector, for example, and this is often the case with pay negotiations that I'm involved in, employers will offer up money for pay rises, but they will also try and seek other changes to terms and conditions. For example, in the rail sector, they're talking about driverless trains, driver-only trains. And that if they're trying to negotiate that in at the moment as another change in terms of conditions, and which will therefore lead to fewer workers in the future, it's really difficult to justify that when they're only offering what the unions would see as a few percent in terms of a pay rise.
And what is your view of these demands that these workers have raised? Would you say that a lot of their concerns are valid? Would you say that the anger has reached a point on the ground where they have no other option but to take to the streets?
So I think that for people to actually go on strike, that is a last resort. It's not something that the unions or the workers themselves will take lightly. And going on strike at the same time as other workers and unions who are striking adds to the impact of that on the government and other employers who are affected. I think we're all feeling the pinch, and workers in those sectors, particularly the lower paid, will definitely be feeling it. So I can definitely sympathise with why they would want to go on strike, if not even just to push the government and other employers to take their concerns seriously and come to the table. And having been involved on behalf of employers in leading pay negotiations of this nature in the past, I know that there is always an opportunity, but it requires both parties to seek to compromise and come to the table together.
Right. Amanda, on that rather optimistic note, we're leaving it there. Thanks very much for being here on the broadcast.
Thank you.